And we're live again. FullStackLive is live again. Hello, DevOps people. Have you missed me? I missed you. I'm happy to be back. If I recall correctly, my last stream was back in January, and it feels like an eternity. I'm alright, I hope you're doing well as well. So why did I drop off Twitch? Mostly because all this. I've learned to set priorities, and with all the things that required my attention, required strength of nerves, required energy, my live stream simply fell off the wagon, and I had to prioritize other things like my work, things like my family, things like my mental health, and that's why I decided to stop streaming for the time being until I felt like it again, and that time is now. I've been thinking about getting back on Twitch for quite a while, and I've tried a few things, I developed a few ideas, and I'll try and be back on a regular schedule again, and I'll do a few experiments with the format of the stream. There's still a lot of things that require my time and attention, so I'll see how I can incorporate these into the stream. For example, for today, I'm simply planning on editing a presentation script that I'm going to record either later this week or next week. And so that's why I added Coworking to my stream title. That's basically something I stole from RWX Rob, another graybeard here on the software development Twitch. Let's do a shout out, actually. RWX Rob. So, yeah, so sometimes I'm going to do some work either on screen or maybe just in my chat screen, just like today. Sometimes I'm going to do project work and do some real coding here. We'll see how what kind of balance I'm going to find. My main focus will be on being online on a regular schedule again, because I think everything else will fall into place eventually. As always, let's make this thing interactive. If there's anything that you'd like to ask, if you have any feedback, shoutouts or whatever, pop into Twitch chat and we can have a chat about it. Alrighty, so I think that's enough rambling. The first change I made before relaunching my stream here is that I switched to 1080p. I hope that my infrastructure here at my home office is going to hold up with that. I think having good, clear screen image is an important thing, so I decided to upgrade from 720p to 1080p, and I hope you will enjoy the improvement. Is there anything else? I do not think so. I don't want to ramble on for too long about being back. I'm just happy that it's the case. If you have been a regular viewer, you also notice that I'm on much earlier than usual. I'm based in Ireland, and normally I started streaming at about 2 p.m. And it's only 1 p.m. now. I thought if I am supposed to take care of my energy levels, it's actually a good idea to start streaming earlier, because the later it gets into the afternoon, the less energy I have and the more depleted I feel, and that doesn't make for a very entertaining stream. So I'm going to start a bit earlier than in the past, possibly in the late morning, but that again is also subject to change. We'll see. Okay, so co-working, as I mentioned, is going to be that I'll be working on a talk script. I'm going to submit a talk to the Digital by Default Summit, which is going to be an online conference in May, and I proposed a topic that I already made a talk about. The title of this talk is called Direct Communication, 7 Topics You Should Share with Your Team. I have the video up on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/FullStackLive. For the Digital by Default Summit, I'm going to re-record this talk, and this time I'm going to try something new. I've got myself a teleprompter, so instead of trying to record a few sentences in a row and then doing a lot of heavy video editing with plenty of jump cuts, I'll try and record a continuous talk by using the teleprompter, and that's why I'm going to write a full script for this talk, not with only bullet points as I did when I did this talk for the first time, put the full text of the talk, which will also enable me to welcome to the stream, Worldhood. Happy to have you here. Which will also enable me to provide people with a transcript of the talk. So we could use that for closed captioning, actually, or simply to add it to the video for people who want to read it during the stream or later. So I guess putting in the effort of writing a full presentation script will have quite a few positive outcomes in the end. So, I guess let's get working. So this co-working thing is supposed to be supposed to work like this. I'll simply work away as I would without being online on Twitch, and I invite you to pop into chat with anything that you'd like to add, to ask, to give me feedback about. If you are new to the stream, feel free to ask who I am, what I do. I'll be more than happy to talk about myself, as is quite common with us Twitch streamers. We'll see. And for the time frame, since I'd like to be finished by 2 p.m., which is in less than an hour, this is going to be a first short stream, which will also help me to gauge how well this works and where my mental battery is going to be at the end of the stream. In the future, my streams will be longer. I'm aiming at a 2 to 3 hour mark at the moment. That's at least what I aspire to. We'll see. So, here we are. I have done quite a bit of editing already. I could start with the bullet points that I had made for my first talk recording, and I simply fleshed out everything into full sentences. And now I'm going to do a little bit of editing, and we'll see where it's going to take me. And after editing the script, I guess I'll also have to update my slides so that I can, in the end, then record my talk and do an edit where I insert the slides at the proper locations. Maybe if you're not familiar with Direct, I'll give you a short introduction in what this talk is going to be about, I guess. Direct is simply an acronym. It stands for decisions, insights, results, emotions, contacts, troubles, and we've added another meaning recently, which is thanks. And these aspects are topics that are ideally suited to be shared with a team, especially if you are working as a distributed team, if you are working from home, if you do any kind of remote work. This acronym is supposed to help you with deciding if something is worth sharing with your team. I've been running a distributed company for 11 years now, and this is basically one of the lessons I've learned over time. Communication is important, and on the other hand, it's hard to decide sometimes if something is worth sharing, if you are entering TMI land, things like that. And so I came up with this acronym where you can see what the most important issues are that you are supposed to share, decisions you take, insights you gain, results you achieve, emotions you have, contacts you encountered, troubles you experience, and gratitude, so thanks, that you'd like to express. That's in short what I recommend sharing with your colleagues on a regular basis. So if you ask yourself, is this thing that is just on my mind worth sharing, direct might help you to make this decision and see, okay, yeah, it's basically a result. It's not the greatest result. It's not a milestone in our project or something, but it's a result, and so it fits the pattern, and I'm going to share that. Question: are you working from home at the moment? Are you maybe even on a permanently remote team? What's your work situation at the moment and for the time being? Foolish Noble, hello to you too. Happy to have you. Good day. How are you doing? Welcome back to FullStackLive. Working from home for over a year now. Yeah, I think that's not surprising. I guess most people who watch software development streams are in some kind of engineering practice themselves, and most of us software developers and ops people, if we weren't working remotely already, the pandemic certainly made us the first ones to go home. And how has been WFH for you? Has it been difficult? Is it a challenge? Have you come to enjoy it, or are you longing for this all to be over and being able to return to the office? Quick Draw, hello, welcome to FullStackLive. How are you on this beautiful Tuesday? Not having to commute is such a game changer. I think that's probably the most positive thing that everyone got to enjoy, however reluctantly they went into working from home. Not having to spend things, not having to spend time in a car or on public transport is has certainly been a benefit for everyone, and on the plus side of things. It's trickier to make sure you don't overwork. That's right, yeah. The mythical work-life balance, which never existed from my perspective, and isn't a thing really, and I'll be happy to talk about that, is especially hard to achieve when the place where you work and the place where you spend the rest of your life is the same. Good to see, Quick Draw. I'm fine as well. I'm well enough to decide to relaunch my stream here. It's the first time in months that I'm doing a stream on Twitch, and I hope I'll be able to keep it up on a regular schedule from now on again. Quick Draw writes, I love working from home. It's so chill and relaxing. Usually can't get my shit together, so I wake up 20 minutes before I should be at work. 40 minutes to get ready and 10 to travel. Yeah. The magic of deadlines. Having to be at a stand-up meeting or at least to pop up in Slack or something like that. And still, 20 minutes is plenty if you simply throw together a quick breakfast, get a shower, and pop into your in your tracksuit or something like that. As I said, I've been working from home for 11 years now, since I left my corporate past, and I found that it's a good thing to get dressed, to suit up for work, even though for me it only means putting on a hoodie and some pants. But not working in your PJs is, I think, a good thing, because switching your clothing goes together with switching your mindset, and so FullStackLive writes, I'm actually switching jobs. It would be interesting to see how being onboarded to a new job works, working from day one. Yeah, that's a critical point. Just recently, I responded to a post in a Slack that I take part in, which is the Go Remote Slack, which is an organization here in Ireland that promotes working from home and remote work in general, where someone asked about how to best integrate themselves into a new team, and my response was, well, actually that should be on the team itself to think about how they can integrate you, and I agree. It certainly will be interesting how they do that, because from my perspective, onboarding can make or break how someone integrates themselves into a new team. That's something you really shouldn't just improvise. That should have had some proper planning and preparation. But again, that's not on the person joining the team, that's on the existing team, I think. And yes, of course, the old workspace issue. I'm lucky that at least I have this small box room here in our house that I could make my office. But if all the space in your house has already been taken over by family and things like that, then It's hard to carve out your little corner if you don't want to stay working from the bed all day. And for example, eventually I'll be in the same situation where this room probably will have to be emptied for my teenagey daughter, and then I'll have to see where I go with all my gear. If we need to move into a bigger place, or if I simply rent some office space somewhere in town. Crickter said, indeed, quickly brush my teeth, grab coffee and food, and just fire up the PC. Yeah, that's excellent. Working since 3 a.m. Well, your workday should be done by now, shouldn't it? Wow, how come? Are you working in shifts, or are you on call or something? How do you start work at 3 a.m.? Sort of the same as walking home from work, not only to get exercise, but it's also a very good way to disconnect after a work day. Yeah. Having some kind of a routine that signals your brain, now we are going to work and now we are leaving work. For example, really, in my case, I should make this a routine myself. At a certain time, leaving my office here and actually leaving the house, walking just a few steps around the block, and then coming back to the house and my family now having finished working would be something that would do me good. Exegate.io, hello, yeah, long time no see. All the more I am happy to see you again. Welcome back to FullStackLive. How is life treating you, Exegate.io? Could not sleep and was eager to get this issue resolved. Well, since you say eager and not anxious, I think that's a good thing. That's how motivation works. And actually, in my talk here, I'm also going to mention results and the results-only work environment, which means your company should not care about when you work, where you work, how you do your work, if you type upside down or whatever. The thing they should care the most, or ideally only, should care for the most, and or ideally only, should be your results. And so if it tickles your fancy at 3 a.m. to resolve some issue, why not? And then go outside, enjoy the day, and do something. Another early bird, Execute.io, it's 5 a.m. and it just starts. Well, good morning to you, sir. Wow, no, it's 1:30 p.m. here in Ireland. Not quite end of the day, but certainly not beginning either. Fullsnabel wrote, I heard that some hotels are trying to offer office space for people that don't have an office to go to anymore. Yes, another initiative that I learned about recently is that there's a new initiative here in Ireland where they want to invigorate the more rural areas, of which there are many here in Ireland. I mean, there's basically only a few bigger cities like Dublin or Cork or Galway, and the rest is more or less rural, and they want to make them more remote friendly by, for example, opening pubs during the day for more or less a co-working space and things like that, or buildings that have been empty for a while, to create remote work hubs and things like that, and I'm following this with great interest. That's one of the positive sides of this pandemic, that not only did it push everyone into remote work, for better or for worse, many companies were forced to learn that remote work is a thing and that it can work if you're doing it right. And if it also helps locations, towns outside of the big metropolitan areas to get back on their feet with the growing remote workforce in mind, I'm all for it. Executive writes, life is life. Yeah, complaining won't do you any good. I live by the motto, love it, change it, or leave it. There's no space for complaining. And yeah. No, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Presenting at Railsconf, I'm presenting at the Digital by Default Summit, where I'm going to talk about a little method I developed that helps people decide what to share with their colleagues when they're working remote. Because we always are caught between TMI on one side and getting completely lost and forgotten about on the other side. So the direct acronym is supposed to help people with deciding if something is worth sharing, and to help teams create a culture that encourages sharing these things. And the things that I recommend sharing are these 7 topics here: decisions, insights, results, emotions, contacts, troubles, and thanks down here. That's what this talk is going to be about, and I'll have to work on this script for a little bit. But let me catch up with chat first. Quickler writes, Senior made this very complex system, which I'm doing some changes to, because 80% of what he has done we don't need for these other projects. I'm basically picking it apart and rebuilding it. Okay. Sounds like an opportunity to compartmentalize a few things and make them more reusable. And not only is he way beyond my skill level, but there are also like 6,000 lines of code where everything is connected in some way. Okay, so, yep. Design and architecture comes in here. And as soon as I remove one tiny bit of code, it all falls apart. That sounds like tight coupling. That doesn't sound like good design. Okay. And are you doing this separately from your more senior colleague? Because that sounds like a good opportunity to do pair programming. I just recently read an article from who was it again? I think it was at Chesitron on Twitter, who wrote about the pesky pull request reviews, where people keep waiting for peer reviews on their pull or merge requests. And what she wrote was that there's a great method to avoid these waiting times and these stalled merge requests simply by doing what she calls ensemble programming, so not pair programming, but with a bigger group. Ideally with the whole team. Of course, that's not very realistic, but at least with a good portion of the team working together on the same code, agreeing on the direction in which to go, and then simply merging the results, because there doesn't need to be any more review after having already worked on this together. And I found this quite inspiring, and your situation might be an opportunity to actually put this into practice. and really work together, pulling these pieces apart, extracting code into separate classes, for example, and making them more reusable, instead of you going through this dependency hell all by yourself. Execute writes, I start at 5 a.m. so I can be done by 2 o'clock and pick up Mojo from school at 3 p.m. I sneak in about 60 minutes of exercise, though. That's brilliant. Coming in here and putting me in under pressure, starting earlier and spending more time with my family. That's a bit of a guilty point for me. I spend a lot of time in this tiny office and can't say that I'm not enjoying it, but on the other hand, oftentimes I really miss a lot of stuff that I probably should not miss in terms of family experiences and quality time with my kids and with my wife. Starting earlier would make a little bit more space for that. I'll take that as an inspiration. And yes, I'm going to actually publish my write-up together with the talk. Not only will this write-up allow me to record my talk using a teleprompter in a continuous way without having to do heavy editing afterwards, it'll also be a great transcript of the talk. It'll be the perfect transcript of the talk, and it'll also allow something like closed captioning, I think. So we'll see. Foolish Sniper wrote, what about writing from scratch but steal from the older code base what you need? That's also a good approach. However, it might add a few more challenges on top of the already existing ones. Especially if you're not all too versed in architecture yourself. The rewrite seldom leads to a better implementation than the original one. That's always the aspiration, of course. Everyone who starts a rewrite says, I know a lot more than I knew back then, or that other people knew back then when they wrote the original code, so we'll be able to build it in a better way. In the end, there's all too much similarity, and yeah. Execute feels the drive to go back to the Rails way, trying to do everything to stick to pure Rails. Yes, and I think it's today it's possible more than ever with things like Stimulus, which or Hotwire and things like that, which already add a lot of things that can be done the Rails way without adding additional frameworks that might have been designed with other things in mind. I did read about the MIT to GPL to MIT license around about. At least I heard about it in a podcast. No, I read about it on Twitter, I think. Another change that I've made to the stream is that I'm running a break timer, and my current break timer is telling me that it's time to take a break. So I'll be off for a few minutes, stretching and maybe getting myself another drink, and I'll be back in a few minutes. And I'm back. Still 20 seconds of my break to go, but I'd like to catch up on chat because you folks can't stop talking. Quicktor wrote, "We are a small company. Senior doesn't have much time to be hands-on with this, and I understand it. Told my boss it would take me a good while to understand this, and don't really have the time limit, so it's kind of nice for me to just sit there and learn." Definitely, that's a good thing. However, there's always a however. That also sounds a little bit like the usual argument against pair programming, that it basically is a waste of time that could be used in parallel, and there are there's a lot of insight that says otherwise. Let me see if my notes have something on this topic. There was something that I should have wrote down. No? Apparently not. Pity. Because what the thing I'm referring to was making a very good point that this that it's definitely not a waste of time, and working in parallel is more or less well, doesn't yield the benefits that on paper it should. Let's put it this way. I really need to find this. Oops, what's happening? Find article on perceived Advantages of parallel work versus... It might actually be the same article. I'll try and chase it. Okay, so yeah, my magic debacle. I've only been employed for 1.5 years. I think I didn't even know what HTML was until 2018. And it looks like you're getting into the weeds, and that's a good thing. Okay. Execute wrote rewrite versus refactor should not be made lightly. Yep. I agree. Execute wrote will be here adding to chat so you can never get back to work. Yeah, I think by now I'm hopelessly behind. But I do enjoy being hopelessly behind, to be honest. And I know what I would be getting myself into when I started the stream, didn't I? If the component is 1,000 lines of code, rewrite might not be too bad. If it's a bigger project, rewrite probably fails, yeah. That's lots of practice experience speaking there. Refactoring a code base you don't understand, it might not lead to good things either, yeah. Also, refactoring a code base that doesn't have tests can and will quickly become a nightmare. That's something that is much easier done as a group. I'm sort of put in charge of the project I'm implementing. It's a massive one, so I should have absolute control of what is going on. Well, that's fair. Doesn't mean that it shouldn't be teamwork. Exegate also mentioned the testing aspect of things. Fullersnau wrote, if it's a massive one, don't think it's possible to have absolute control. Yeah, it's probably not really possible in reality. That's why I do shading coding in my spare time. Then I can have absolute control. At work, I need to understand the architecture and trust people to do the work right. Also, if you want to have people add to the project later, somewhere you need to grab their hands and get them up to speed. And so why not start early with that? Lots of good stuff here. Quickdraw wrote, it's easier to remember what may fail when you are the one who have written it all. No offense, but that's not correct. That's inexperienced speaking, I think, because oftentimes I don't even remember what I did 6 months ago, and there's been more than one occasion when I took older code that I wrote myself and thought, my God, what kind of an idiot was I when I wrote this? Was I drunk or something? Then I make a lot of changes, thinking it would improve things, and then I realize, okay, I've broken everything because I did I did build this intentionally that way it is, and maybe I should have added some kind of documentation, maybe even a comment why I did things that way, and then I wouldn't have wasted a lot of time of future me. But relying on memory and therefore saying it should be a single person who is responsible, I don't think that's a sustainable practice in the long run. Another interesting thought by Execute.io here. Pair programming to me is so exhausting because you're working 100%. Very little distraction, can't watch a stream in pair. That's right. I don't think pair programming is something that can be done for hours on end. But why? No one forces you to do that. And I'd rather pair for an hour or maybe two and get some solid results and some agreement on things, insight that I wouldn't have gained doing it solo. All these things might still be much more effective than myself doodling around with stuff for hours and only ideally reaching the same point. So while it might be exhausting, and you can mitigate that by, for example, handing over control and things like that. So having different roles where someone drives the pair programming and someone else only is the co-pilot, things like that. Switching roles in that might help make things less draining, but still I'd rather have an intensive 2-hour pair session than, say, a 4-hour noodling session where I watch streams because I don't bring up the attention because I'm reaching my attention span and things like that. So that's not a downside that speaks against pair programming, I think. But I agree, it's certainly something that forces you to focus, and I think that's only fair because there are other people spending their time with you. But yeah. Copper Beardy, hello sir, greetings, how are you today? Happy to have you. Welcome back to FullStackLive. Victor writes, I guess you are quite more experienced than I am. If you saw my code, you would probably think I was drunk. Well, that's what I think of my own code, so no issue there. Except right, I can pair for a few hours because so much gets done, but it's so focused it uses up my energy. Not a bad thing at all. Yeah, we are in complete agreement there. So don't do 3-hour pairing sessions because no, I don't think that'll work. Thinking back on my own experience, there is a point where you get diminishing returns because everyone is just jumping at the bit, and things might also get more emotional, and you're less capable of discussing things and being questioned and all these things, having to defend your approach and things like that. You can do that for 1 or 2 hours, but there's a point where it gets harder. Makes perfect sense what you write, Creekdraw. Of course, once you are familiar with a code base, there's also a lot of fun in actually knowing what happens in there, realizing where you built something buggy, where you can quickly pinpoint where the root cause of an issue is, things like that. That's definitely a lot of fun, and you get this feeling of competence and being able to improve on what you've already built, and I think that's a huge part of what makes software engineering so much fun. However, if you don't want to be the only one experiencing this positive side of things, or if your business can't afford for you to be the only one who experiences this, and you need to be working on a code base as a team, then you need to aim for everyone being on the same page and everyone experiencing this familiarity and this competence. And I think that's what we've been talking about in this thread. How can we make sure that the person who built the code isn't the only person that can work with the code? I have no idea why my Better Touch tool keeps popping up at random times. Must be a bug in the app, I think, because something is calling or restarting Better Touch tool, or restarting a Better Touch tool process, and that makes the front end here pop up without me doing anything. Read about an issue like that on the Better Touch tool forums. Okay, so Exegate is going to lurk for a bit, no problem. And thank you. Exactly, if you get sick and can't work, if you get fired, if you leave the company on your own, that's something the business needs to make sure doesn't lead to issues. And on the other hand, okay, that's a perfect point to recommend a book to you, and that's The Phoenix Project. Because this book is basically a non-fiction IT book written as a novel. And in this novel, there is the situation that certain parts of a company's IT system is only understandable to one single person named Brent. And basically Brent becomes the bottleneck for everything that needs to happen with the code, to happen with the IT infrastructure. And basically the company comes to a standstill because everything needs to go through Brent, who's the only person who can deal with things. And first of all, that's terrible for the business, of course. On the other hand, it's also terrible for the person being Brent, because you won't have a single quiet moment anymore, because everyone keeps coming to you with their issues and wanting you to prioritize their issue. And so I don't think that's the way you want to enjoy your seniority and your competence and things like that, because it'll all end up as a nightmare for everyone involved. So it makes a lot of sense to making sure you're not becoming this bottleneck from the get-go. In that sense, it might not even be provide job security for you. The only thing that's pretty sure is that there will be a lot of stressful times for yourself, because he or she is the only one who can deal with this thing. Where is he or she? Yeah, that's something that I would try and avoid. Fulesnava says, and the one thing to avoid being a bottleneck is to trust your coworkers. Exactly. It's much more fun feeling competent together than feeling more competent than everyone. Already struggle with anxiety, so yeah, I feel it some days. See? I know what you're talking about. Oh, my attention span up says I'm having a lunch break coming up, and cleans my desktop for me. Wait, where are we? That's what I need. And can I have my OBS back, please? And my chat. Okay. Fuller's novel describes where culture goes down the drain when developers refuse to let go of things because everyone else will just make it worse. And yeah, that's not a good place to be in. You want to trust that you can go on a vacation for 4 weeks, without without forcing the company to go on vacation because no one else can do things, and also so when you return from your vacation, you want to see the business still thriving, thriving, and you don't want to have everyone have messed with your code and made everything worse. So that's why you need to do teamwork from the get-go, and pair or mob or ensemble programming is a good way to do that. Atomilo, hey, how you doing? Welcome to FullStackLive. Do you think full-stack dev should learn Docker and Kubernetes? Ooh, what a loaded question. Should learn. It's definitely a good thing to learn Docker. Docker is quite an approachable technology. It's easy to use once you grasp the foundational stuff. You can use it on your own workstation. You can use it at grand scale if there's the need to. So Docker, I think it is something that you should be familiar with. Kubernetes, on the other hand, is interesting, but it depends on your use case. So I wouldn't see Kubernetes as mandatory. Just the other day, I saw a talk from an engineer from the Internet Archive, and they actually switched from Kubernetes to HashiCorp Nomad as their infrastructure automation tool. So there are alternatives, if only a few, to Kubernetes, and maybe after learning about Docker, learning about some kind of technology to scale out, be it Docker Swarm, if that still exists, or Kubernetes, or Nomad. There are lots of alternatives, and having a basic grasp how these things work, so how do I go from I can run it on my laptop to I can run it on, say, 10 Amazon instances or something like that, is a good thing. However, don't do a deep dive on Kubernetes if there's no need to. Morty, Mammoth, hey! It's so great to see you. And the Lone Ranger, thanks for following. Folks, happy to have you here. Welcome back to FullStackLive. I'm back after months of offline being, and yeah, I'm happy to be back and happy to see all these familiar names again. Really makes my day. Thanks for stopping by. Krito wrote, my last frightening experience was this guy brought in through the welfare to help him get work. Okay, he was quite experienced, which is a good thing. We wanted to change the language entirely of a project in Works for 2 years. That might be a bit too ambitious. Okay, I can see how this is frightening. But I don't think they were able to they wouldn't have had the leverage to do so, even if they wanted to, I hope. But that's really a rookie developer approach, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but someone who comes into a project and wants to replace programming language, web framework, and all these things without knowing anything about the underlying infrastructure and the existing code, that's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? Hotokiri Batusai, welcome. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope all is well. Yes, I am well. Am I attending Railsconf this year? That's the second time Railsconf has been mentioned, and so I'm going to make myself a note. Wait, come back. Where are my notes? I should definitely take part as an attendee. When is Railsconf going to be? Hasn't been on my radar yet. Should have been. The thing I'm working on is actually a talk, but it's not for Railsconf. It's for the Digital by Default Summit, one of the many remote work conferences that are going to come up this year. This one is going to be in May. I'm talking about my direct method. I thought I'd do some work on this talk during my stream today, but I'm more chatting with everyone, and that's perfectly fair. So other than that, I'm great. I was well enough to say, okay, now's the time to get back on Twitch. I dropped off Twitch in January because I simply didn't have the attention span, the mental fortitude, the time. With all the things that were happening in my family and at work and things like that. Nothing serious, but just normal pandemic business. So I had to prioritize and not spend a lot of time on Twitch, which I intend to do more often now. If everything goes well, I'll be back on Thursday. Where are we? It's 1 a.m. Yeah, greetings to Down Under. While I'm still about to finish my day, yours has been finished for hours now. What if the language was Ruby? Well, rewriting everything in Ruby is okay, of course, and will always be an improvement. I was talking in a more general way. Oh, Railsconf is already underway. Started yesterday. Oh, crap. Okay, so why didn't it pop up? Well, they might have not put things up on YouTube yet, and I actually wasn't on YouTube today yet. Well, focused me. Look at that. Aparico, can you please share the link to the page you are using? I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean the app that I'm using here, or this one here? Well, that's Typora, a markdown editing app, and that's Obsidian, my note-taking app of choice, where I store all the stuff that I don't want to forget, but certainly will. So that's why I'm writing it down. Moody writes, by the way, last time we spoke I was undergoing... Yes, you were undergoing burnout. It ended up getting much worse. Found that I had no energy of work at home. I can relate. I've been there. Ended up taking time off work and seeing a dietitian. Oh, interesting. Did you change your nutrition? Dietitian made me fix my diet and quit caffeine. Found that I started to feel even worse, and the burnout feeling didn't go away. Even after almost 2 months of no work, so I ended up going to a psychiatrist, getting diagnosed with ADHD. Medication has changed my life. You're certainly not the first person getting to tell this story. I don't think I have ADHD myself. Don't have many of the typical symptoms, but there's such a large group of people who lived a long life without being diagnosed, and finally getting diagnosed, getting medication, and their life turning around. So I'm quite happy that you ended up there. Not happy that it took you so long and that it was that hard of a journey, but certainly happy that where you ended up. Turns out I've been self-medicating with caffeine my entire life. Yeah, but caffeine doesn't fix the actual issues, does it? I would never consider that there was an underlying issue if it wasn't for the actual time off. Thank you all for your talks on stressing about looking after your own med. Okay, I'm so happy that I didn't suffer for nothing. No, just kidding. Yeah, that's so great. Sometimes it just takes a real break, a real deviation from your usual course to find these things. Sometimes it takes even harder experiences, like something like a total breakdown or something like that. Fortunately, I hope we both haven't had to experience that. I didn't. But yeah, it needs these opportunities in life. And it's a good thing, yeah. A resource for learning full stack. Well, the term full stack has so much different meanings depending on who you talk to, and of course it's at least a huge set of topics. Actual full stack would mean that you are familiar with everything from the hardware level up to what's actually happening on your screen. And in practice, that's oftentimes not really possible or desirable. On the other hand, it's often what's required most of the time is what's called T-shaped, which means you have a broad range of topics you are familiar with to a certain but shallow depth. And then there's one topic where you go deep and where you have real expertise. You might develop more than one of these deep stems over time once you're getting to Moody's or Exeget.io's age, which is about 80, I think. Then you'll probably have developed more than one area of expertise, but that's what I would recommend if you're getting into this industry, really trying to get a broad understanding of things. How does a protocol work, a protocol like TCP, for example, and how does a web framework work? What's the difference between a web framework and something more lightweight than, for example, jQuery or something? What are different programming languages? But then pick one thing and go deep on that. That'll give you a good standing and a good base to build from. I can relate, Moody, when you write, I always thought it meant being constantly distracted and losing attention and these things. Yeah, and since I excelled academically, but it turns out I just really knew how to compensate. That's something I recently read about ADHD, and or I saw a YouTube video about it, and I thought, well, a few things sound familiar. Then I said, okay, but from my early days as a teenager, I was able to focus on things and even focus so much on the stuff that I was busy with that I didn't even notice talking to my mom and telling her that I'd be right there at lunch, and 10 minutes later she would stand in the doorway angry without me even knowing that I had said, yes, I'll be there. Then again, when I mentioned that to a colleague, he said, well, that's another ADHD trait where you have this deep focus. So I thought, okay, well, but still, I don't think it applies to me. But there were certainly a few traits that would apply to me. And that's why it's all the more important to have someone, have a professional diagnose it and get a checkup. I guess if you're in doubt, get yourself checked, and the result might surprise you. Being a full stack engineer is like being a restaurant that serves many cuisines. Yeah, it's easy to make a case for it if your entire family can't decide what exactly want to eat, and you might all have average meals, but it's never going to be quite as good as going to a restaurant for the exact thing you're craving. Exactly. It's like these places that offer pizza and doner and all kinds of stuff, falafel, and everything is all right, but nothing is amazing, and that's quite different to a specialized restaurant that might even have only a few dishes but each and every one of them is amazing. Division by Zero, hello Marcus, welcome to FullStackLive, happy to have you here. Chronic attention deficit disorder is a bit of a misnomer. Yeah, it probably is. It's more attention management disorder. You are capable of focus and distraction, but you aren't really in control of when you hyperfocus and when you don't. So you end up not focusing during the day and then staying up all night deeply focused on something that doesn't matter. Yep. As I said, when in doubt, maybe ask someone who knows more about this stuff. Okay, folks, I'm already over my time limit. I'll be back on Thursday. This has been so much fun, and I'm so proud of myself that I actually managed to press start on the stream again. And I hope to see you all again. I guess I'll try and start in my early morning, which will be about 11 a.m. Irish time. That's the plan, at least, because that's the time when I still have a certain attention span and a certain focus. And we'll see how things develop from there. Didn't get too far with editing my talk. That's something that I'll continue later after taking a walk and attending a Zoom meeting and other things that will occupy the rest of my afternoon. Thank you so much for dropping by. I hope to see you again soon. And yeah, hope to see you Thursday. Take care, everyone.